for the whole of Thanet. We are Academy FM.
Good morning, it is Thanet's local radio station, 107.8 Academy FM. And Saturdays after 10 mean a guest joining me in the studio. If you were listening last week, you'll have heard the County Councillor for Margate, Councillor Barry Lewis, joining me. And this week, very pleased to be able to welcome into the studio County Councillor for Ramsgate, Councillor Karen Constantine. Karen, good morning.
Hello and good morning.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. Nice to be back in the studio.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I know it was actually, I think, before COVID when you were last here, and I know we have spoken online since then in the last 18 months, and it's great to see you face to face. Firstly, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
We can still do that for the middle of January, can't we? I know. When do you stop saying Happy New Year? Is it after the first time you've seen someone, maybe? I think so.
Yeah. It's a nice icebreaker, though.
It is indeed. And we've got lots to talk about this morning, talking about some of the local issues that are affecting Ramsgate, some of the issues that you are working hard for as the County Councillor. And I think to start with, let's start by talking about COVID.
Yes.
Again, you know, still in the news very much so. Omicron over the last month or so. It's nearly 2 years since the pandemic started and changed our life.
Yes.
So just some thoughts from yourself on this,
Well,
Karen?
hasn't it been a very, very difficult time for everybody? You know, that first wave and that shock that everybody went into, not really knowing what was happening, not knowing what to expect, and then people, like, you know, managing so well. Most people just, you know, really being able to deal with that. And of course, our wonderful NHS workers, not just them, you know, obviously shop workers, postmen, and, you know, firefighters, the whole range of people that managed to keep society going, and now, you know, trying to get people out for sometimes their first and second vaccine, but for their boosters. So, you know, I just want to remind people that they can go up to it's the place that used to be the Curry's.
That's right, Curry's
shop
at
Westwood Cross. People can go there today and they can walk in and get their jabs. And I am meeting people now that have, you know, taken the plunge, who have been kind of hung back a bit and have now said, you know what, me and my family, we're going to go and get vaccinated. So that's great to see. There's a definite change coming in that respect. But isn't it sad to see the state that the government are in at the moment?
Yeah, I was going to come on and talk about this, and of course it's been in the news all this week. So again, some thoughts from you on that. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm staggered, actually. I'm staggered. I mean, how Boris Johnson is still in his role is beyond me, because, I mean, certainly in my family, we adhered to these regulations on a really strict basis, probably, you know, more strictly than a lot of people, because I am a politician, and I know people do watch what I do. I know that if I did step out of line, that's likely to be noticed. So you want to be extremely careful, and obviously you want to set a really good example. And here we have a Prime Minister during the most dreadful time in the country that I've ever experienced in my lifetime, and I'm 60 this year, seemingly not only breaking the rules for himself, but also condoning those rules being broken by other people. And we have to remember, you know, people lost loved ones. People's families, you know, it happened in our family. We lost a loved one. We weren't able to go to a proper funeral. We weren't able to go to hospital, etc., because of these regulations. And I am incensed and so disappointed to think of people partying. I think everybody will be. Definitely.
And actually, interestingly enough, now in the news, there's a talk about the restrictions, the current Plan B, being lifted later this month. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it would be brilliant if we can lift the, you know, I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know that much about it, but, you know, as this goes on, you can see that perhaps this virus is lessening its grip, and actually all the precautions that we're taking, the mask wearing, especially the hand washing, being careful in public, etc., pulling back from the big social events when you need to, just to keep that keep that virus under control, but more importantly, not to overwhelm the NHS. That's been the key thing here, and I think we're managing to pull through, so that's credit to everybody's efforts.
Now, something else that's affecting us in the news daily is the cost of living.
Yes.
And, you know, this was starting before the pandemic, but really the pandemic has been, you could say, a further catalyst for bills going up, our utilities. And this is affecting all of us, really, across Thanet, isn't it?
It's every aspect of life. The costs have gone up. So rail fares have gone up. Cost of transport for young people, their school bus pass has gone up. Energy costs are going up. We're seeing the costs in the shop, everything you're buying, you can see there's an increase. And actually, what you've got to think about is that most people have have already done a lot of belt tightening. We've had 10 years of austerity. You know, the IFS said that if we had continued where we were before the financial crisis in 2008, we'd all be £2,500 a year better off. And of course, wages haven't kept up. So even if you're working full time or doing, you know, 2 people working full time, they're still now beginning to struggle.
Yeah.
And this government's going to have a really, really difficult time because people don't like that.
No,
they
definitely.
don't like struggling.
And they see, I mean, I myself did the meter reading over Christmas and New
Yeah.
Year from my energy supplier. So my bills have gone up by not
Yeah.
quite 50%, but certainly, wow, actually,
Yeah.
am I using more electricity? Am I using more gas? I don't think so.
No.
Not at all.
No, and I think it's going to continue. I think we're now in that cycle where costs are going to go up, where people, I mean, research again has shown that a lot of people now don't have savings. We've exhausted our savings, and therefore, as costs go up, more and more people are going to be, you know, struggling to meet those costs and going into debt, etc. And that's going to be a very hard time for people. And coming on the back of austerity, coming on the back of COVID crisis that we've had to go through, this is the wrong way of going forward.
And equally, we see that benefits, universal credit, other things are being cut
Yes.
or restricted. So you're right, people don't have savings, although the press like to say that there's been thousands, millions saved
Yeah.
over the COVID period, but I think that's a very small percentage of the population.
You know, I think people like to have treats, don't they? We all like it. I like to go out for a nice meal now and again, and Christmas time I like to make sure there's plenty in the house, and I like to make sure the kids have got presents. When I say kids, the youngest is actually 23, so
Yeah.
but you know, there isn't a lot there.
Yeah.
We can't keep that up all year round. And so I think obviously, you know, in the run up to Christmas, people have spent money, but there will be a lot of belt tightening, and lots of residents are telling me that costs have gone up in all sorts of ways. So people that are doing DIY are saying actually the cost of wood and plasterboard and all those sort of things has shot up. So it's everywhere we look in life, the costs are escalating, and there's no sign of them coming down.
Karen, stay there. Going to play a quick piece of music, then we're going to come back and talk about some more local issues that you're working with that are affecting us here in Thanet and in Ramsgate. Saturday morning across Thanet, Taylor Dane and Prove Your Love. Joining me in the studio this morning is County Councillor for Ramsgate, Karen Constantine. We've got lots to talk about, Karen, this morning, so we've got quite a full agenda, and I know that there's a lot of issues that you are working hard for the people of Ramsgate as we head now into the new year, into 2022. First thing I want to talk about, if that's okay, is your work with making safer roads, and in particular introducing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Well, a lot of residents contact me about the need for better traffic regulation in Ramsgate. You know, we're a Georgian Victorian town. We've got some very tight roads, and we've got lots of schools spread around, and lots of people have contacted me very concerned about idling traffic outside school. I think we could, you know, stop that. We've got issues with, you know, people speeding, going excessive rates through town. You know, I don't know why people think it's okay to drive really badly, but a lot of people seem to think that way. And really, this is what's made me think that actually moving towards a global restriction and introducing a 20-mile-per-hour zone for Ramsgate would be just a really, really good idea, because it would slow the traffic down. We'd have less emissions, so less pollutions. We'd have less noise as well, and it would create a kind of calmer, safer environment. But at the moment, we're doing a sort of piecemeal approach. So I've been working with Councillor Dave Green up in Nethercourt, who's been a dynamo there, getting the 20-mile-per-hour zone put into place for Nethercourt. But really and truly, I'd like to see that covering the whole of Ramsgate. You know, I think it's really important. And I think the other thing that we need, you know, is we've got that stretch of road from the Comfort Inn right up to the Pewsian Church, and you know, we've got very few zebra crossings. We've got one down in the town, and I think we need to have more zebra crossings. I mean, we need to really pay attention to safety in Ramsgate. And you know, we had big success in the end with the gate on Harbour Street, which took me nearly 4 years to convince the county council to put the permissions in place to put the gate there. And for a while I was going around the county taking photographs of gates in every location other than Ramsgate to submit to Kent County Council. But we got it in the end, and that's kind of hopefully going to transform Harbour Street, so it's going to be a safe place for people to shop and wander around, and hopefully, especially during the summer, we'll see that area come alive. So I think 20 miles per hour it's a great thing for safety. We should definitely be all watching our speed, especially near schools, etc. But I think it's time we really thought forward and thought, well, yes, this is something that we could do right across Ramsgate. It would be a good thing to do, reduce pollution and actually create a safer, nicer environment for everybody.
Definitely. It does sound good. I agree with you, because we've seen it introduced in certain parts of Margate. I know in Sandwich they've had the 20 mile an hour and it's a smaller town.
Yes.
But in the centre of town, that's been there for quite a number of years. And from what I see, works very well. And again, very small streets in the centre of town there,
exactly.
of course.
It's the same, yeah. And you don't miss those extra 2 or 3 minutes in life that it takes you to drive from place A to place B. Calmer driving, it's more considered, it's safer. And I just think, it's time now to move in that direction, because there are a lot of traffic movements along Newington Road. There's 3 or 4 schools along there. So there's a lot of young people walking along, and a lot of residents contact me and say, this is an accident waiting to happen. And I agree with them. I think there are spots around Ramsgate where you could pretty much predict where something's going to happen. But of course, the regulations of Kent County Council, what they say is, we don't really take action until there's a fatality, until there's a death. Well, that's far, far, far too late.
It's too late.
But 20 miles an hour would really reduce the impact. If somebody's hit by a car going at 20 miles an hour, they're going to survive. If that car's going at 30, you've almost got no chance. So it's really time to move forward on this.
Yeah. Another big subject to mention this morning, Karen, is health. And I know we've talked about that before on air. It still continues on, even more so in 2022. We talked about what the NHS has been doing with the pandemic and concentrating on that. What are you working with on a health perspective?
Well, we're looking potentially at further reorganisation. And we had the reorganisation that was in connection with the stroke services.
Yes.
So we needed a hyperacute stroke unit. That will now be sited at Ashford post-pandemic. It's currently, you get stroke treatment over it in Canterbury, because everything's been rearranged to manage the pandemic. But I think there are a number of things that are really concerning me. We're not getting enough people coming through to train in the NHS, and locally I'd like to see more of our young people thinking about careers in the NHS as nurses or doctors, or the myriad of other roles that there are. That would be brilliant to see. We need to grow our own talent. We need to see those young people wanting to forge careers, looking after others in the NHS. I'm also kind of quite concerned about the way people are beginning to think about doctors and doctors' receptionists is becoming quite negative. But in fact, because of COVID and because of the shortage in the workforce, services are, in effect, they are being rationed. We are all waiting longer to see a doctor, and that's not really going to change. And that's a direct result really of government policy, so cutting bursaries for nurses creates a more difficult workforce, less people go in because it's much more costly to train to be a nurse or a midwife. So we're all going to have to make decisions at forthcoming elections about what sort of society we want, and whether or not we want a society that invests in our healthcare and wellness, because it's not just about being unwell, it's also about looking after yourself. Well-being, yes. So, and I know people like Jack Packman do a great job around social prescribing, but we need to go much further. So I'm worried actually about this reorganisation. I don't want to see us lose our accident and emergency. I don't want to see any downgrading of maternity. I don't want to lose any further services.
No, excellent. There's lots to talk about, and health is such a big subject, as you say, not just the kind of physical, but the emotional well-being. There's a huge myriad of areas that's affecting
mental
us.
health, well-being, really super important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And just finally for this bit, because we'll come back and talk more after I've done the travel, is about it's not really the news, I don't think so recently, but last year, travellers on the port.
Yes.
And that is a big concern for yourself, isn't it?
Well, I was down on the port with the travellers a couple of days ago, sat and had a cup of tea. I'm always made, as the other councillors are and other visitors, always made incredibly welcome, which is nice. That site's been there now it's a temporary site, it's been there for 7 months. If you do go past, you'll notice that it's well kept. You know, this stereotyping about rubbish everywhere, that's exactly what it is. It's stereotyping. And we've currently got a judicial review going to try to prevent Thanet District Council from evicting them, because all Thanet District Council are doing, instead of dealing with the root cause and actually looking for a site where travellers can stop and stay for a while, is they go through a process of eviction. So you evict the travellers, this group and other groups, they move on, you follow them, you evict them from there, they move on, you follow them, you evict them from there. The cost of that is astronomical. I mean, I did a Freedom of Information request, and they're paying barristers £2,000 a day to do those evictions. So it's all coming out of our pocket, and actually, if common sense prevailed, what we'd have is a site. And the other thing is, the other reason this is really important is because we're all in this game together. Everybody's as valuable as everybody else, and you know, the travellers there on the port, they need health treatment as well. Their kids need to get into education. That's what they want, and I think we should be working together to support them.
Definitely.
But the outcome of the judicial review will be interesting. So far, we've managed to stymie the council on 4 occasions.
Okay, Karen, stay there. We are going to come back and talk more about some other things that are affecting us across Ramsgate and Thanet.
Paul Rutters.
Academy FM.
Now we're back with Councillor Karen Constantine, who's joining me in the studio to talk about some issues affecting Ramsgate, affecting us, as we know, in 2022. And Karen, busy. We've just been talking about this off air, really. I mean, we've all been very busy with the pandemic. It's, you know, certainly one thing or another, dealing maybe with work, with personal issues. And your role as a councillor has been, I'm sure, non-stop in that respect as well.
Pretty much, yes.
But you love it.
Yes, I do love it. Yes,
know.
I've always loved it. It's a privilege actually to be able to do it. I don't say that glibly. It really is. You know.
And I know one of the issues and one of the projects you're working hard for this year is about accessibility.
Yes.
To our beaches and to our coastline. I mean, let's be honest. We are all so lucky living here across Thanet.
We are.
Beautiful coastline, and that's one of the reasons why we want to live here, and why also people want to come down and live here as well. But for those that are perhaps disabled, wheelchairs, buggies, accessibility is not great, is it?
It's a real problem, especially Ramsgate. I can't think of anywhere really where you can easily get down onto the beach, where we've got a boardwalk. You can get down and walk along the seafront, you know, that's one thing. But to get actually down to the water or to get into the water, and so many of us now have taken up sea swimming. I'm a mermaid. I belong to that mermaids group in Ramsgate, so that's brilliant. But, you know, I did some... a walk through the town last year with some disabled people, with Joe Shaw, who's quite well known in Ramsgate. He's a fantastic man. You know, he's dealing with these injuries. But, you know, to walk with him in his wheelchair and to realise the difficulties of just getting, you know, through the town and into shops, etc. I mean, it is really appalling that we're at that stage. So one of the things I would like to do is, first of all, you know, there's this levelling up money, which is nearly £20 million. I'd like to think that every single penny of that that's spent doesn't preclude anybody with any sort of disability accessing it, or else there will be trouble. Let me say that. But, you know, I'd like to this year get a Moby mat. You know, work with perhaps Ramsgate Town Council to get a mat that can roll out from, say, you know, where we've got concrete areas down to the sea, and that would enable people on sticks, in wheelchairs, or people with buggies to get down to the sea and perhaps give them the opportunity of, you know, dipping their toes if that's what they want to do. But I think we really don't think hard enough about disabled access, you know, and I can really understand why the fixing of the lifts, which I think the Labour group now are proposing to do at Thanet District Council, it's so important to have that access, you know.
Definitely.
We take it for, those of us that are able-bodied, we take it for granted. So it'd be great to get that fixed.
Great. Now, finally, I know you're writing a bit of a memoir.
I am.
So just tell me about this. It sounds interesting.
Well, I've gone back to university. Nearly 60, like I say, 59 now. Decided to go and do an MFA at Birkbeck and to write a memoir, and I'm sort of trying to cover 6 decades, so it's quite a lot to fit in there. But I'm particularly interested to hear from other women and, men as well, who've had experience of mother and baby homes. So at 15, I was sent away into care. I was put in, I'm using those words, I was put into care, and I was put into one of these mother and baby homes. And very recently, because I'm doing this memoir, I'd contacted them for my notes. I've got all my notes back. So I'm reading about myself at 15 years old. I'm reading back the things that I said at that time. I'm reflecting on the kind of maternity knowledge that I had, which was actually I had only done the life cycle of a locust. So I really didn't know what to expect when I went into labour. But I'm really keen to hear from other women and men that have had that experience, whether they've been into those homes, whether they had friends that perhaps were taken or suddenly disappeared from school and went into those care situations, or whether they themselves are children that went through that adoption process.
Okay, and you're learning a lot about yourself from your younger years.
Yes, it's in order to write this memoir, one of the things that I've done is I've really revisited my childhood. So I'd been onto eBay and rebought some of the toys that I really could remember and really liked as a kid, which also included stamp collecting, which was my hobby back at about 7 years old. So I've really tried to access those memories and really spent time in sort of deep contemplation, I suppose. And it's an interesting, it's quite difficult to write stuff that's happened to you that's perhaps not, easy stuff. But at the same time, developing a craft as well, learning to write in a creative way is really super enjoyable.
Great. Actually, sounds very interesting. So hopefully we'll hear more about that in the future as well, Karen, when you've continued on with the memoirs. And just to finish off, I know you've got to say happy birthday to someone. Is that right?
Yes. So my wonderful daughter, Lil Constantine, is 24 on the 21st of January. Yeah. She's also receiving her degree this Monday at Manchester, and she got her first. And I just wanted to say happy birthday to Lil and how proud I am of her and how much I love her.
Oh, well, happy birthday and congratulations on that first, which is superb.
Yeah.
Now, Karen, if people want more information, the best place to go is your website, isn't it, actually?
Yes.
Which is Karen4, that's the digit 4, labour.uk.
Yes.
So from there they can contact you. There's your details for email and so on, and get in touch to talk about some of these issues and more that we've been talking about. So Karen4labour.uk, and I will put that website on our Facebook post this morning as well, so you can click straight through from there. Thank you very much for joining me. Always a pleasure to see you in the studio.
And thank you, Paul, for the work that you do for our community.
You're more than welcome. Thanks, Karen. Cheers.
Okay.